I'm Akira Tanaka, 24 years old, and I just watched my college savings get spent on a BMW for my spoiled sister. What a spectacular car, Yuki, my mom gushed, stroking the shiny red paint. You really earned it with so much effort. I stood there with crossed arms, watching Yuki soak up the attention, spinning those keys like a trophy. Isn't it amazing? Yuki squealed, heels clicking on concrete as she circled her new ride. The dealer said it was the last one in this color. It had to be mine. Of course it had to be hers. That's how things worked in the Tanaka family. If Yuki wanted something, Yuki got it, even if it belonged to someone else. Smartest decision we've made, Dad said, wrapping his arm around her. Your sister wasn't going to use that money for anything useful anyway. I bit my tongue. My master's degree plans weren't useful to them. Didn't matter that I'd worked full-time for 3 years while graduating with honors. Didn't matter that I got accepted into 3 top programs. No, Yuki's BMW was more important than my future. Don't make that face, Akira, Mom warned. Yuki needs a good car for her new job. Ah yes, the new job at Dad's company, Tanaka Industries, where I'd earned my way up from the mailroom. But Princess Yuki needed a BMW for her very first real position. Sure, I kept my voice steady. Congratulations, Yuki. She didn't even glance my way, too busy taking selfies. Thanks. Maybe if you work hard enough, you'll buy one too someday. Our parents laughed at her little dig. They always did when Yuki reminded me of my place. I checked my watch. I've got an early meeting tomorrow. On Saturday. Mom frowned. Akira, you work too much. Someone has to, I muttered. But they weren't listening anymore, already planning Yuki's celebration dinner. As I walked to my old, practical car, I heard Yuki's voice. What if we change the seats to white leather? Black is so boring. I smiled faintly, climbing in. Have fun. In 3 months, at the shareholders meeting, they'd see what all my hard work was really for. Here's what my family never knew, what they never bothered to ask. I wasn't just climbing the corporate ladder at Tanaka Industries. I was playing the long game. 5 years ago, when I was 19, I found a letter addressed to Dad. It was from his former partner, Hiroshi Yamamoto. Hiroshi had been bought out years earlier, but still held company shares. Now he needed to sell them for medical expenses. I could have handed that letter to Dad. Instead, I contacted Hiroshi myself. For 6 months, I negotiated. Used every penny from part-time jobs and a small inheritance to buy his shares. By 20, I owned 15% of Tanaka Industries. But I didn't stop there. I kept buying shares from old investors and employees. Every extra dollar went into increasing my stake through a shell company I'd set up with legal help. Last month, I finally hit my target, 51% of Tanaka Industries. In 3 months, at the shareholders meeting, everything would be revealed. My phone buzzed as I drove home. Text from Yuki, don't be jealous. Maybe if you hadn't wasted. I deleted it without finishing. Another email popped up, from my lawyer. I smiled at the confirmation on my laptop screen. Everything was ready for the shareholders meeting. I'd already convinced several board members who were getting tired of Dad's leadership, though they had no idea what was coming. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Sarah from accounting, one of the few who'd seen my potential from day one and became my mentor. Saw Yuki's new BMW on Instagram, she said, closing the door behind her. Your college fund. I nodded. Sarah knew the whole story. Your dad's going to regret this. She settled across from me. Have you told them anything? Not a word, I replied, turning my laptop toward her with the latest financial reports. Look at this. Profits dropped 15% because Dad gave Yuki's boyfriend startup an exclusive contract. The board is restless. Sarah's eyes widened at the numbers. It's worse than I thought. You ready for this? I gestured at the walls lined with research and strategic plans. I've been ready for years. Question is, are they ready for me? They're not. Sarah grinned. And that's the beautiful part. We spent hours fine-tuning reports and strategies. At noon, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Yuki. Dad's taking me furniture shopping for my new office. He says I need it for my promotion. I raised an eyebrow. Did you know about this promotion? Your dad announced it yesterday, Sarah rolled her eyes. Yuki is now head of a new marketing division. Zero experience required, apparently. Of course, I muttered. She never has to iron anything. The rest of the day flew by. Leaving the office, I saw Yuki's BMW parked in the executive space Dad had assigned her. 3 months, I thought. In 3 months, everything changes. That night, an invitation arrived for a family dinner celebrating Yuki's promotion. I considered skipping it, but decided to go. I'd endured years of their digs and favoritism. What was one more dinner? At my parents' house, Yuki dominated the conversation, bragging about her first week. I told Kenji from HR, "Did you see that presentation? It needed way more flair." Dad gazed at her proudly. "Exactly, princess. You have natural leadership instincts." I sat silently, wondering if anyone else noticed the irony of praising leadership in someone who'd never led anything. "Oh, Akira," Mom suddenly remembered I existed. We were discussing Yuki's brilliant ideas to restructure marketing. "Fascinating." I sipped my wine. "What experience qualifies you for these grand plans?" I asked Yuki directly. She hesitated, then blurted, "Well, I took a marketing class last semester, and Dad says fresh eyes are more valuable than experience." "How convenient," I said dryly. "Akira," Dad's voice carried that familiar tone of disappointment. "Don't be bitter just because Yuki has vision. Not everyone is born to lead." I thought about the shares in my portfolio and the changes coming to Takeover Industries. "You're absolutely right," I said softly. "Not everyone is born to lead. Some of us have to earn it." The next 2 weeks flew by in preparation and observation. Yuki, now head of marketing, made everyone's life miserable, buying ridiculously expensive furniture and firing experienced employees. "She made my cry again today," Sarah reported. "Again? Why now?" "Because I told her the new campaign went over budget, and Yuki said she doesn't understand the modern consumer." Sarah shook her head. "Guess you backed her up." "Dad," I sighed. "Let me guess. My needs to be more open to innovative perspectives." "Exact words," Sarah confirmed. "Half the marketing team is updating their resumes. I made a note to tell Mai to wait until after the shareholders meeting." Sarah gave me a knowing look. "Your dad's been asking around about proxy votes. He's getting nervous." "Good reason to be," I said, showing her the latest quarterly report. "The board is furious about these numbers. Add Yuki's promotion and the employee exodus, and we've got the perfect storm." Sarah finished reading. "You know they'll fight back when they find out." I remembered my college savings transformed into Yuki's BMW. Let them try. The night before the meeting, I overheard Dad on a phone call in his office. "Someone's been buying shares aggressively. The board suspects something big is coming." I smiled, filing away my final documents. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next day, at the shareholders meeting, I'd walk in holding 51% of the company, and for the first time in their lives, my family would have to listen to me. "I hold 51% of Takeover Industries," I announced to the packed boardroom, "and today the board has voted to appoint me CEO." Dead silence. "That's impossible," Dad finally whispered, face draining of color. "Oh, it's very possible," I replied, crossing my arms. "Did you never wonder why Hiroshi Yamamoto's shares disappeared from the reports? Or why so many minor shareholders sold off in recent years? Did you even notice, Dad?" Yuki pointed a shaking finger at me. "You've been planning this for 5 years." "Correct," I admitted without blinking. "Since you started talking about changing the company without ever actually doing anything, and since Dad made it crystal clear that being his favorite mattered more than actual ability." "We gave you everything," Mom protested, tears streaming. "No," my voice turned ice cold. "Yuki was given everything, including my college fund. I built this myself, share by share, while you celebrated her mediocrity." Dad rose, red with fury. "I won't allow this." "You don't have a choice," I said, walking toward the door. "The shareholders' meeting starts in 10 minutes. I suggest you attend. And Yuki," I shot her a glance, "try to look professional." As I left, I heard Yuki's screams and Dad's curses. 5 years of planning, of swallowing their contempt, of waiting for the perfect moment, and it had finally arrived. Everything was about to change. The morning of the meeting, I arrived early. The boardroom was prepared, filled with reports documenting the company's decline under Dad's leadership. Sa handed me coffee. "Your family's already here. Your dad's been trying to get into the boardroom for an hour," she said, barely containing her grin. "Good thing we changed those security codes last week." I took a sip. All board members present, and the press is in the lobby. I hadn't invited the media, but Yuki's disastrous presentation and rumors of a leadership shakeup had leaked. Tanaka Industries was major news. Today would make headlines. Takeshi, our security guard, buzzed in. "Your father demands to see you before the meeting." "Send him in." I checked my watch. Dad stormed in like a charging bull, face flushed crimson. "This ends now, Akira. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm still CEO of this company." "Actually." I slid a document across the table. "You're not. The board voted yesterday. You'd know this if you checked emails instead of covering up Yuki's mistakes." His hands trembled as he grabbed the paper. "This is absurd. I built this company." "Grandfather built it," I corrected, opening my laptop. "You inherited it, and nearly destroyed it. The shareholders are done with your leadership." "Shareholders?" he spat. "I hold the majority of shares." "Not anymore," I said, turning the screen toward him. "Want to see exactly how many shares you've lost? How many investors sold because they lost faith in your direction?" The color completely drained from his face as the numbers sank in. "Hiroshi's shares," he whispered. "He trusted me to keep them in capable hands," I said quietly. "I spent 5 years learning this business from the ground up. Unlike your chosen successor, Yuki has privilege, not potential." The proof was that conference call. Our stock dropped 15% in 1 hour because she couldn't follow basic SEC regulations. He collapsed into a chair, suddenly looking decades older. "Why didn't you tell me you were buying shares? Why all the secrecy? Would you have listened?" I asked. Before he could answer, Yuki burst through the door, followed by Mom. "Fix this!" she shrieked. "I already have plans for this company. I have a vision." "Your vision cost us millions and violated federal regulations," I said calmly. "The only reason there's no investigation is because I spent all night cleaning up your mess." "It's not fair, Dad." "Tell her this isn't fair." But Dad just stayed blankly at my laptop screen. "The meeting starts in 20 minutes, I announced. "You can behave professionally or throw a tantrum and get escorted out by security. Your choice." Yuki turned to Mom desperately. "Mom, say something." But Mom was staring around my office, at the reports, the research, years of meticulous work, as if seeing them for the first time. "All those early mornings, those late nights," she murmured. "We thought you were just." "What? That I wasn't capable? That I had no ambition beyond being Yuki's backup plan?" "We always knew you were intelligent," she said weakly. "But corporate leadership isn't really for women." "How interesting," I said flatly. That rule never seemed to apply to Yuki. The intercom crackled. Sawa's voice cut through the tension. "The shareholders are arriving, Miss Tanaka." I gathered my files. It's time. The moment of absolute truth. The boardroom was packed to capacity. Directors, shareholders, press, all silent as we entered. I took my position at the podium. 5 years of work culminated in this single moment. Tanaka Industries stands at a critical crossroads, I began. For the next hour, I systematically laid out the company's decline, plummeting profits, mass resignations, devastating reputational damage. Shareholders nodded grimly, some showing visible anger, especially when I detailed Yuki's presentation disaster. When I reached that topic, Yuki tried to interrupt, but a senior director silenced her with one withering glare. "Yesterday, the board unanimously voted for new leadership," I announced. "As majority shareholder and newly appointed CEO, I will implement immediate changes to save Tanaka Industries." The room exploded with questions. I answered each one with surgical precision, demonstrating knowledge Dad had never possessed. He, meanwhile, seemed to shrink further into his seat. An elderly shareholder finally asked, What roles will your father and sister have in this new structure? I held Dad's gaze as I replied. They will be offered positions based strictly on their experience and demonstrated abilities, exactly like every other applicant. Yuki shot to her feet. This is completely ridiculous. I am the face of Tanaka Industries. But this time, no one came to her defense. I have innovative plans. Your plans cost us millions in market value, I replied evenly. Please sit down, or security will escort you out. Yuki looked around frantically, desperate for support. No one spoke, not even Mom, who avoided all eye contact. When I called for the final vote to confirm my appointment as CEO, the result was overwhelming. The motion passed decisively, with only Dad's and Yuki's pathetic votes against. The first month as CEO, the media coverage was relentless. Daughter's secret takeover saves family empire. I appeared on every major financial magazine cover. I gave exactly one interview, focused entirely on Tanaka Industries' future. As expected, my family's reaction was toxic. Yuki launched a social media victim campaign. Betrayed by my own sister, she sobbed in Instagram stories. Mom tried emotional manipulation. Your sister is devastated. She thought she had a real future here. Dad called an emergency board meeting to challenge my decisions, but the numbers defended me. Profits up 20% in one quarter. Key employees like my returning. Investor confidence completely restored. Koji Nakamura, the board's senior member, actually laughed in Dad's face. Rio, your daughter achieved in 1 month what you couldn't accomplish in 5 years. Pure poetic justice. 3 months later, something unexpected happened. Yuki applied for a junior accounting position. Her resume: only her failed marketing director stint and an unfinished business degree. She tried to skip the mandatory technical exam. That's beneath my qualifications. We sent her the same rejection letter as everyone else. Thank you for your application. We recommend completing courses at the local community college first. Her response: a bitter, disloyal family Twitter rant. Deleted within 2 hours when nobody cared. The cycle was finally complete. 1 year later, Dad's consulting venture went bankrupt, and he came begging for employment. Yuki works as a server at a chain restaurant and still blames me for not handing her an executive position. Meanwhile, the merit-based scholarship program I established already sponsors 20 students, children of employees who demonstrate actual potential. On the night I completed my first year as CEO, I walked past the company photo wall. My grandfather, the founder, now stood beside my official portrait. Sar appeared next to me. He would be incredibly proud. You restored everything he built. I touched the frame gently. Merit over privilege. Excellence over nepotism. That's how real legacies are created. As I left the building, I watched employees heading home with genuine pride, knowing that here, hard work actually gets rewarded. My phone buzzed. Another email from the scholarship committee. 10 new applicants had met our rigorous requirements. Would you like to review the files? I smiled widely. The cycle was finally, beautifully complete.